Welcome back to another episode of Abundance on Tap, everyone. This is the official podcast of the Appalachian Water Collective. I'm your co-host, Alex Corey, joined as always by the hydrated Ashley Suzanne DeMarco. We started this podcast as a way to catalog the transformative stories that we come across every day from the people we come in contact with in this business who are transforming their health, their financial status, and their capacity to grow food systems and themselves through making one single decision, changing their water. This is Susan Richheimer. Susan is coming to us from the Midwest. We're coming to you today from the Blue Ridge Mountains in western North Carolina, where the passion flower and the blue butterfly pea and the mountain waters are going absolutely crazy. This weekend is a interesting time for all of us in the water world. We're converging in Las Vegas to hydrate Las Vegas in the middle of summer. We're celebrating our company's 49th birthday party, and it's going to be quite spectacular. And that's the common theme of today's podcast is holistic health. Susan's been on a holistic health journey for the last 30 years. She's also an integrative health coach. Ashley and I are also both health coaches, so we share a massive common theme of wanting to impact people through better transformative health and empowerment. And the message that I hope you get from today's podcast made me tear up a little bit was finding your tribe. It's one of Susan's core tenets is we don't often get to pick the people that we hang out with whenever we're growing up. They're almost chosen for us, but the beauty of being a fully empowered and sovereign person is you get to choose your adult family and who you want to grow with. I hope you really enjoy this episode with Susan Richheimer.
We are so happy to have Susan Richheimer here with us today. She is just a dear friend of mine that I have actually probably known for 3 years now, and digitally, but I feel like we get to see each other in a few days. So the energy is really, really excited right now. So when you work with people for years in this capacity, you get to see their transformation. And I am just, like I said, so excited to interview you today. So thank you so much for being here. She is in the Midwest, and I could just let her tell you a little bit about herself. But we usually ask a question, basically like, where were you before you had access to this?
Wow. Where was I? I had a health journey forever, I guess, as we all did. I was very sorry about all the ums. I had very low self-esteem, very low self-worth for a long time. And in order to try to compensate for that, I was very, I really desecrated is the word I'm thinking of, and that's not the word I want, but I was very hard on my body. I was very, very hard on my body. I was listening. I spent the first at least more than half of my life listening to other people instead of hearing what my own needs were, or hearing what my own needs were and then hearing that they weren't the right ones because they were inconvenient for other people. But I didn't know that. And so there was a lot of shame behind it. And so the things that I did to try to look better and feel better were very toxic. And I started to change that I started to change it. So it was it was more than half my life ago, but less than half my life. I was about 20 and I was very desperate, and I thought I was going to die if I didn't clean myself up. And I also was actually more afraid that I was going to hurt somebody else, and that would be my ultimate consequence. So I started to look into different ways that I could do that, empower myself. And my path was very windy. Obviously, I met my husband in 2000, and I had been, a serial dater. It was like 50 first dates. We joke that we had both done that, and we met, and that was it. And we got married we got engaged less than 3 months later, and got married a year later, and then had our first son 10 months to the day after our wedding, our second son 15 months later, our third son 18 months later. And then we waited 3 years for our fourth, but everything happened obviously very quickly. And I had moved. So I was again rediscovering. I got really good at being alone. And then I had to rediscover who I was. And I became a mom really quickly. So I became a wife and a mom. I moved to Milwaukee from Chicago, and was unstable again, felt like I was really finding myself, and like I was being judged. So it was just a different demographic that I felt judged by. And for me, again, that felt normal. So with having those kids, I really wanted to do things very close to the earth. But for me, it was like a new language. And now my dog is done with my story. Excuse me. Okay. You're free. Go on. Sorry, guys. Life happens.
Life happens. You're good.
Right? This is why we do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is probably a much longer answer than you were hoping for, but okay.
Got all the time you need.
So thank you. Yeah, I kept looking for ways to do that. And at the same time, I was a stay-home mom, which is what I wanted to be. But I didn't feel like there was still something missing. And I think that was just the calling, there was a greater purpose, and there still is, and I'm searching for it. And I was taught that you either know what you want to do, you're going to be a professional, pick one. And that didn't work for me. And I went to art school, and I was certified in yoga, and I became a special ed teacher. And so I was sort of doing these things as my kids were growing up, here and there. And my youngest was 2. And I said to my husband, I want to do this, yoga certification, and then go for my master's degree. And he said, now? And I said, right now. And so, one of those things about being a learner is that you have to make sure to take action. And I was continuing to learn, I was taking action, but I wasn't fulfilled. Eventually, I ended up in a situation where, and in the meantime, by the way, there were my kids, everyone in my house is not neurotypical. And so we all have, there's a lot. And so I think I was exploring also I became aware in teaching special ed and in having kids a little bit more about how to parent myself. And my babies came to cuddle with me. And so I ended up working with kids who had emotional and behavioral disabilities based in trauma. And those were really my people. That was really my calling. They're still my people. Sometimes it's kind of weird because I'll see kids that know struggle, and I feel very connected to them, and I have to remember that they may not feel connected to me right away. But usually I can bridge that gap pretty quickly. So anyway, I had just a few experiences. I worked in the public schools, and these kids were not wanted where they were, and they wanted me to lock them up, basically, and I wanted to set them free. And then I worked for an umbrella organization in Milwaukee, mental health. And I was advocating for these kids and their families. And it just was so toxic. And it was never about the families that I was working with. It was always about the system. And so eventually I ended up knowing that the kids would refuse to take their meds. Like my students, they would refuse to take them, or they would, they didn't have access to them. Milwaukee is very, very segregated, and it's difficult for a lot of people to get their needs met. And oh my goodness. Okay, sorry. And so I ended up finding this is the day, guys. All the kids are home and the dogs are here, and I came to my safe place, and it'll never be quiet. But you know what? It'll be quiet when everyone goes back to school, and then I'll be sad and lonely, and
Exactly.
you'll
We'll
interview
take the
me.
noise. That's what audio editing's for.
So anyway, the bottom line is I had, again, when my kids were little, I had tried to find cloth diapers. I had my, my milk delivered. I was able to, now actually a friend that I had met at that point when our kids were little, was teaching classes on how to use essential oils, for baby massages. And so, but it was like a new language for me, and there was too much going on. And, oh my goodness. And so I sort of stepped away from it. It was very hard. This is like 2002. It was very hard in the Midwest, in Milwaukee. I didn't have access to so much. And I'm an hour and a half from Madison. But, when you have little kids, it just becomes hard. It becomes harder and harder. And I had, some real issues that I needed to work through. So I ran into, 15 years later, I ran into a woman at a coffee shop that I worked with before Todd and I got married the summer before. And she was also an educator, and she was selling essential oils. And I thought that essential oils were for moms who lunched. And I wasn't really open to the crowd that I knew was selling them. But this woman, this was somebody that I really liked and trusted. And I just said to her, do you have any emotional aromatherapy oils? She did. And I brought them to the kids, and they helped them. And so we incorporated that into our lives. I have, one of my boys is a all STEM science. And so it was like an apothecary for him. And we sort of took a turn into a more holistic lifestyle. And for me, I was promised a lot from the company that I was working for and the people that I was working with, in terms of the compensation plan and, what my life was going to look like, and the time freedom. And the bottom line was that I learned a lot, but I was working harder. I was working more hours. And I was also becoming someone that I didn't recognize and that I didn't like. I had said, I will never sell anything, including like candy for the kids, fundraising for school, like that. I was just writing about that. That was like terrifying to me. And so I didn't want to do that. And it was starting to feel like I was that person that I avoided. And as that was happening, Things weren't changing, during the pandemic, and I just didn't fit that mold. And I wasn't getting my questions answered. And so, and what I realize now is that it was a pretty limited mindset. I was surrounded by people who were not leaders. They just weren't connected, and they think very small. And it was making me crazy, and I was continuing to learn for everybody else. So I ended up sitting next to a woman on a plane who had her water with her. This is how we come around to this part of the story. She had her water. She told me about how she could have it on the plane, talked a little bit about oils, talked about the water. And then she started bringing me water share. She started giving us water, and my husband and my kids, everybody is very skeptical. And sometimes it works to my disadvantage, but very often it works to my advantage, because they have to learn, they have to see for themselves. And so Todd and I started drinking the water, and she kept bringing it. And she gave me 9.5 right away. And she's like, you can handle this. You're okay. And we just started drinking it, and we noticed a difference. And we actually, we were ready to invest. And we did. We invested in a trifecta that wasn't, it was a pretend trifecta. And I'll explain that to you later. But, and then I ended up talking to Sarah Holden, who was one of the founders of Evolutionera, I believe, also, and who I knew through the essential oils. And she was somebody who never would directly benefit. She would never directly benefit from my sales, but she was one of the most available, knowledgeable, fun, learners and friends that I had. She was always available to support me, and I wanted to work with her, but I thought initially that this woman who I had met, who was local, we would build together. And I think that's really important too, to say that I've always had people around. I think, Ashley, we are similar in this way. And one of the things that you didn't say is that we are also in an accountability group together. So we connect daily, even though we probably would anyway, but we connect on a deep level every day, in order to set goals, and personal and professional, with an epic group of women, small group of women. And so I wanted to work with this woman. And again, I got onto this team, and I was the one that was learning for everybody else. And I had already been there. And then I talked to Sarah and I talked to Annie, and they said, you don't have to be on our team in order to access this information. And I knew I wanted to be. I knew that the only way that I was going to really grow and feel connected, because I had done it before and I was always on the outside, I knew I wanted to be right in there. And so I sold the machines that I bought originally, and rebought the trifecta, because I knew that this was what we were going to do. And the last thing I'll just say is, it's funny, because as frustrated as I can get with not having control over everything, I sometimes check. I don't know if you guys do this, but I sometimes check in the back of my head, like, okay, well, what if you stopped? What if there was something else? What if you moved on? And I literally, for the first time in my life, like, it would literally be like you would be ripping my heart out. Like, everything that I am, everything that I believe, everything, that I'm looking for is all centered around this. And I think that people don't understand our community until they're a part of it, because there isn't anything like it out there. And especially when you do something where you're either, I love the male energy. I love that we have, our team is so diverse and we all bring in such different things, and people keep joining that, the one thing that we have in common is that we get it. We're looking for it, and that's all it takes. Just that mindset of abundance, like there is enough for everybody. So by supporting each other, everybody wins. And I have never had that in my life. I had wanted it, but so
I
that's
got two questions for you, Susan.
Bring it.
One is, would you say that you said most of the men in your family are very cynical, skeptical like myself. Do you think that it was the experience of the water that soothed them, or more of, if they hadn't had the actual experience of drinking it, what do you think they would have would they have come to it at some point, or is the experience necessary, especially for that extremely skeptical mind?
100%. I think it's important for everybody. I think you can come to it, and once you drink it, you discover it and it enhances it. But I think that for them, so we, this is one of my favorite testimonials, and there are obviously many, 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 but one of our kids goes to school in Denver. So last year we drove him out to school, and we brought our water, obviously. But I didn't bring my machine, because sometimes now I know enough people in different places with machines that I can usually get refills, where I am. So that was the case. Erica and Lynn Hicks are out in Boulder, which isn't far from Denver. It was a great opportunity to connect with them. And I had done that once before. So we had brought out our, we brought the water out with us, and the first 2 days drinking the water, bring it on the plane because it's medical grade, and they start to know me at the airport, which I love. They're like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like they check it, but no, they don't question. So the first 2 days we drank the water, and not only did we not have any altitude adjustment, I was racing my kids like up and down stairs, and I really didn't think about it. And then on the third day, we were supposed to connect with Lynn, and it didn't work. And so we had no options at that point. And so we drank the water. And that day, starting in the morning, we drank from their, the taps the little fillers that they have all over the place. And Todd started to get a headache. And then we both started to notice that we were really dry, and we were drinking at least as much as we had been drinking. It's not like we stopped drinking water because we didn't have access to our own. And then by that evening, so 6 or 8 hours later, we were in a store walking around and sort of separated. I couldn't find him. And I finally catch up with him. He's sitting on a couch with a wad of bloody Kleenex and his head held back because his nose had started to bleed to the point he was like dripping on the floor. And they grabbed him and sat him down. And the woman who worked there said, oh, you're obviously not from here. And we said, no, but this is day 3. So we came home, and one of our kids picked us up. One of the other boys picked us up, and my husband said, you're not going to believe this, like what the water did. And my son said, oh, come. And this is the scientist. He's like, come on, Dad, and he's like, no, I'm serious. Like, you won't believe. And so we just continue to have these experiences. They don't want to believe it. And yet they're sneaking into our bathroom to take showers, with the Anespa. And so I think that's also a really good lesson for people who are skeptical, who aren't our children, you know? And I haven't really thought about it that way, but Ashley, with what we talk about, so much, and how we just want to just give it to people, just take it and drink it. And, like, what is wrong? Like, this is it, like, but again, we say it's so activating that sometimes people are literally, I think they know, but they're scared. And I hate to say it like that, but I think it is really a game changer, and you have to be open to like next level living if you bring this in, and not everybody is.
I think you said it. It is a game changer, and people are terrified of change, which is the entire thing I run into. So it's, yeah, if you know that it might shift something, doesn't matter what it is, one way or another, there's an enormous amount of resistance that comes up because I might make things better. And people are often terrified of things getting better.
Well, it's unknown.
Right.
And we're not used to that happening. And we've also been promised a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I got one more question, then I'll let Ashley take over before I forget. What is your definition of neurodivergent? Because everyone has something slightly different. So how would you explain that? And as a follow-up, did you notice anything change whenever you started, maybe after a week or two, on the water with how your brain functioned?
Oh, as an athlete, yeah, let alone as somebody who's neurodivergent. For me, in all honesty, I mean, my degree is in inclusive education. So I believe in individualization on every level. Neurodivergent to me is just most of us, if not all of us, all have, I mean, at least the people that I've come in contact with, so I guess it's anybody who's above or below the baseline in terms of capabilities. But I did Taekwondo for years, and our school was very diverse. And we used to, one of the biggest, one of the biggest groups, I don't know how to say that, that we had was, one of the best things that we had to offer was that we had a group of people who, instead of saying had special needs, they had special abilities. And to me, so the answer to your question is neurodivergent is anybody who has a superpower. And we all worked together, black belts, white belts, somebody who had CP, somebody who, was an amputee, somebody, my kids were teaching adults. I mean, it was kids, foster kids were coming in with kids that, were living in upper middle class. I mean, it was just, I get the chills thinking about it. It was amazing. And I did that with my kids for years. And the difference, Alex, that to answer your question is, I noticed immediately, honestly, and I know I'm in tune with my body. My husband isn't, and it took him a little longer, but he did know. I noticed the energy. I noticed the clarity. I noticed my skin, my hair. I actually had seen somebody who I hadn't seen in 4 months. And she looked at me and she goes, "Oh my God, like you're glowing." And I just kind of took it for granted. How's that?
That was perfect. Yep. Everyone has a different experience whenever, like, I had a completely different experience. The thing I always ask about neurodivergency and how people explain it, because it assumes there's a bell curve or a normal. I've never been able to, like, I don't know what normal is, because even when I was growing up and it wasn't classified quite as publicly or as much, and it wasn't really a term when I was in school, but I didn't know anyone who I would I couldn't lump a group of people in and be like, these people all think the same. Like, by no means would I say that. So I don't know what normal is, I guess is what I was trying to say. I
I
don't know
don't,
what the standard is.
I think that it's what the people who, I don't want to even go there.
Okay, we won't go there.
Yeah, no, I think unfortunately it's a very close-minded way of thinking that there is such a thing as normal, because it means that, like you said, there's a bell curve. Is that where we want to be? That's not where I want to be. That's not who we've raised our children to be. And what's happened is, because of the community that I've had around, they've struggled, but they know who they are enough to know who they're not. And we, it's very interesting because my husband didn't have, his experiences were so different, and his communication, is so different. And his father is actually a survivor. I think I've told you both this, is a survivor of the Holocaust. When he was little, he was like 3 years old, and his story is unbelievable. But being raised, there's that second generation of survivors is a real, obviously a real thing, a really intense thing. And so there was not a lot of talking, and obviously that's not how I was raised. There was a lot of talking and not a lot of listening. But that's really that's who we want to put out there. That's who we want to give back. Yeah.
What'd that bring up for you, Ashley?
I just love this conversation. I work with an anthroposophical medicine woman who's trained in Western medicine, but she's just homeopathy and all things like the child's constitution, as she would say, because it's all the things. It's diet, it's sunlight, it's all these, like all these different layers of being a human, right? And, so much of that bell curve that we're even trying to conceptualize is based off of very physical, scientific, I can test this hypotheses. Whereas what her kind of medicine is like is very energetic and spiritual. And so, when it comes to neurodivergence, and she literally doesn't even want to use that word in her practice anymore, because every child she works with is that. So when you're talking about who is like, you know what I mean? Like it's, and your kids are in their teens getting into their 20s, but like the new kids coming in, like they're a whole different neurodivergence, or whatever word we want to use. It's just a whole different way. And so what we're doing here as a collective is impaired, like that clarity that you're talking about, that now that ability to not have to do it alone. It's allowing that spaciousness for us to actually create a whole world that it delights and revels over humans that are in this tune and in connection, and really understanding like what vitality is. Because these things that you were talking about, like the skepticism, I just had a lead today who, like, her husband is extremely skeptical. And as she was leaving, Scott walked in and she said, "Hey, Scott, will you really do me a favor? Will you reach out to my husband? Like, will you just tell him that you were skeptical too?" And like, it was the first woman that was like, "Please, Scott." And I was like, thank you for asking him permission, because he needs that, right? And so I can go off on a tangent, but like there's just so much ability to expand and to really create a world where these kids, and even us as adults, like it's a playground. It's not full of fear and scarcity and lack and dehydration, and everybody's like shriveled up, right? Like, I just feel like the world like that is dying is just shriveled. Like, it's just dead, and it needs to just die. Like the
Like our own.
exactly, like it's just so all of the things that you're saying and your whole entire journey, like there's a few things I just want to know, like, what's your because this is so amazing for me to watch. Like, tell me your confidence now. Like, tell me how it feels to live in your body compared to what it was before, when you had no confidence, all this shame, all this guilt, and just like self-sabotaging behaviors. And now it's totally opposite. Tell me how it feels to live in your body with this transformation.
So I'm going to tell you something that might be surprising, but this is new for me. And that is, I've felt good in my body before, but what I've had to do to feel good in my body, let me say this, it was based on how my body looked. And it's not that ego is gone, especially as I age, because it's very, very, like, the age is very strange to me. And I'm really coming to terms with that. And I'm giving my body permission to do what it's supposed to be doing. But that being said, I'm also practicing yoga, regularly. I'm also walking, I'm also drinking the water, and I'm eating good food, and I'm working on my Integrative Health Coach, certification. And it has completely blown my mind. And one of the things is that it's, primary nutrition is the food off of your plate. Secondary nutrition is eating the rainbow and your gut-brain connection. And so what I'm trying to say is that, like, in the last couple of days, I haven't felt great about my body, but I'm able to recognize that and articulate that and not react to it in a way that's self-sabotaging, that's, what is the word I'm looking for? Not desecrating. I know that's what I said. All of the D words, not demoralizing, but all of those things, and I'm able to know that I have the power to not only change what my body looks like. I can change most of it. Right. But also to change how I feel. And again, that is with, what I'm consuming, what I'm washing, what I'm washing with, and what I'm giving the soil, how I'm growing the food, all of those things. And we have a very, we're not purists, but the only thing that I truly do consistently is, I'm grounded in this. And it's because of how I feel when I don't. It's a no-brainer, So I don't know if that, answers your question.
I mean, grounded and confident is like, from my perspective, from when I first met you to now, the confidence is like 100%. Like, for me, from what I've seen, from the way that you've shown up, and just like not only been the one that learns, but been the one that teaches, and been the one that like is like, I want to be seen. Like, I'm ready to be seen. I'm ready to be heard. I'm here. I'm ready to take like that. Like, let's create together, And so, grounded is exactly like, you needed the grounded feeling to be able to feel safe in that community.
And that's the support, that has been, that's that week after week after week, You know, I show up. Some weeks I don't, but I'm still showing up, right? And when I'm not showing up, honestly, it's for my family, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's for me, right? But I'm continuing to show up. I want to learn. I want to grow. I also want to share this. And you're right, Ashley. It's the confidence in my mind, the confidence in my intuition. That's really what it is. The confidence in my intuition that Todd and I were sitting down with a lawyer the other day, and I was thinking about the fact that even 6 months ago, I wouldn't have had the questions. I wouldn't have been comfortable asking the questions like, who am I? You know, this man has been practicing law for 30 years or 40, whatever. And I don't do that anymore. I know that my questions are valid. I know that they deserve answers. And my purpose is to not play small anymore. And somebody had said to me, it's interesting because we're taught to play small. We're not even playing small. We're still big. Imagine if we really played big, right? It might have been you who said that. And at the same time, I want to let as many people know, I think mostly women and children for me, that that's what we all have available. And so tomorrow we talk about our money mindset, you know, on our team call. And for me, that was really big because who am I? I mean, like, you know, who am I to call in? Who am I to tell somebody, you know, who has nothing, you know, or feels like they have nothing, you know, that they can have anything. And I struggled with that working, you know, in the inner city. Like, who am I to walk in and say, okay, guys, you know, let's do this. I'm somebody that's coming in and saying, yes, I'm a teacher, but I'm also a learner. And the learners are the best teachers, right? So that's, you know, the confidence is sometimes has to be conscious, but it's also why I'm connected to you every day and why I'm connected to Annie, you know, most days. And I know that I can check in with anybody and be validated, and not just because it's not toxic positivity. It's not like, yay, go team, we're all, it's sincere. I feel seen. So that's, to me, that's what it takes. And I've also now started to really deeply work with my family on what that means, you know, and being present and seeing the person and listening to the person and not being afraid to be vulnerable. My yoga teacher said that to me this morning. I said, I just don't feel good, but I showed up late. I got on my mat, and he was like, I get that. We know that's the most important time to do it, is when you're feeling broken. I mean, maybe not most important, but very, very important to just show up and accept who you are as you are. And I'm doing it, you know?
Do you want to tell us about your project, the Body Electric Project?
The Body Electric projects. I was trying to create a business 2 years ago, trying to create a business where I could support women who were maybe empty nesters to rediscover who they were. And I was working with a business coach who I really, really connected with. And he was amazing and is amazing. And he kept saying to me, you should look into health coaching. And I said, I don't want to be a coach. Again, it was like the labels, like the preconceived notion of what that meant to me. Again, being raised like, you're going to be a professional. That was something that wasn't, you know, that was my ego. and so that's happened a lot too, where I've been able to say, this is what I do, and know that my value isn't that the label is a label, and I judged it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the label is. It could be doctor, doesn't matter. And so what I've done now is, with the experiences that I've had with, emotionally and physically, going from being just very, very sick, very unhealthy, very, always fighting weight, protecting myself, all of these, dis-ease, all of the dis-ease, and the ways that I tried to avoid the pain, in addition to, so setting these goals, and, then the journey, right? So the journey, all the different parts of the journey. I'm 55 years old. I've lived life. I've had a lot of experiences, situations that I put myself in that I wouldn't want anybody else to ever have to be in, but I have something to offer because I've gotten through it. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't slow. It was very much like this. And I also wouldn't trade it for anything, and that more and more every day. And so the Body Electric Projects is, we are electric. We are made of, electricity, atoms, and our water is electric. And, I was listening to Deepak Chopra yesterday talking about infinite possibilities. That's a whole other topic. But again, we're just atoms. We're just charges that are held together. And that's what our water is. And so how can we share that experience, and create community for people who have never had it? And that's mind, body, soul, spirit, and your tribe, right? How can we be in the Body Electric Projects is really about inclusion. That's what it is. Because I remember when I was a teenager and I would drive around and I would feel like I had no one. And that is what terms like neurodiversity and regular normal, that's what that creates, is that alienation. And I want to touch as many people as possible and bring them in for exactly who they are.
What do you think the experience would be if someone had tribe? Well, do you differentiate between tribe and community? Tribe is definitely a more specific word. Does that mean anything different to you?
Actually, it's funny because I'm Jewish. So tribe has some, ancient,
like 12 tribes, sort of.
What?
Like 12 tribes or something like that, sort of.
We use that term a lot, tribe. I guess for me, tribe is even more personal, is closer than community, and even closer than family. Like, this is my tribe. These are the people, because these are the people who I choose, who have also chosen me. We didn't just end up living next door to each other. We didn't just end up being born to the same bloodline. We chose each other.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
So now that the tribe is all coming together, I would love for you to what would you tell someone who's watching this, who's not part of our tribe, our collective, our global community? Like, what would you tell somebody listening to this and be like, still just thinking like, I couldn't do what they're doing. I couldn't show up that way.
You have to start somewhere. And I think I was lucky enough that my tolerance for things that didn't feel authentic to me it's why I've changed jobs so much. It's why I'm continuing to, to learn and to look but that is who I am. So Balaj actually on one of our calls, Balaj had said, a guy said, look, I've moved 20 times. I've had, 10, 15 different jobs. I don't know, who are my people? And he said, those are your people. The people that have those experiences, that don't feel, have looked for where they fit in and to be a part of something. And I think what I have to say is, what do you have to lose? Yeah, it's scary. Change is scary. You know what's scarier? Waking up one day and realizing that, I mean, I don't know how people do it. Like, we know that we have one shot here on this planet. And my grandpa used to say, any day you open your baby blues is a good day. But I don't want to waste any time. And I want to live. I want to feel. And it's very, very scary. And it should be, because of what's out there. But if what we're saying resonates with you, then tiptoe in if you need to, do what you need to do to protect yourself, but come in anyway, and, give it a chance, because it, filling your cup isn't just this. It starts with this. But, again, your primary food is all of the things off of your plate. And if anything, that's what I've gotten. I mean, this community, you are my people. And the last thing I'm going to say, I think, is that we, in the beginning of the call, Ashley, you talked about how we haven't met. It's so crazy. Like, we've never shared physical space. And to me, that is, and even, I mean, Alex, same, like we've connected in a way that is much more intimate, if you will, than my next door neighbor, and I don't think it's just because it's safe because there's distance. I think it's because it's safe because that's what's been created and maintained. And so I just totally lost my train of thought.
Oh, good. To bounce off of what you said, I used to just roll my eyes when people were doing like healings over Zoom.
Yeah.
And I've been exposed to too many things at this point. And just if you look at anything in quantum theory, quantum entanglement, like
Yep.
non-local, everything is very real. And people have profound experiences not in the same geographical location. But when you are together, then even weirder things happen, because if you combine like the energetics of non-locality with microbiomes communicating and all the subtle things of being human, it kind of blows up. Yeah.
Well, so that's what I was saying, is that we ended up taking the kids for the first time, because it's been very difficult to travel just the six of us. And so now that everyone's teenagers and they're comfortable enough with themselves that we didn't need backup with us to be able to do anything. We took them to Maui at Christmas time. And we went to Maui because most of the team, a lot of the team is based there. And it was a great place, obviously, to take a family trip. But Todd was like, he's very exclusive, and he's aware of it now, but he was raised very exclusively, to the point where they take family pictures still. We've been married for 23 years and we're not the oldest. It's not the longest. They take pictures, just the original Richheimers. It's so funny. And even with children, like the grandchildren can be a part. It just is very different than how I think. So he's very exclusive. So he's like, well, we're not going to like hang out with your friends the whole time or anything, right? And I was like, yeah, okay. And immediately, like, we get to the Airbnb, Annie and Rocket come over, they set up the water. Garrett comes over. We have like a Hanukkah party. Todd's cooking for everybody. My kids are completely involved. My teenage boys are downstairs completely involved. Garrett took us surfing, we went scuba diving, like as it was like on and on, like every day there was like Annie's daughter, like has my heart. I mean, it was immediately like nothing about it was new. Nothing about it felt new ever, and the last night we went up the volcano, up the crater to the very top above the clouds. And we all watched this. I like, can't even believe we all watched the sun go down, above the clouds. And it was the whole experience was magic. And it literally reminded me of when we take family trips every summer with my sister and her family, and her kids and my kids are the same ages, and our husbands we're very lucky like that. We all can cohabitate really well. And that was like exactly what it was. We just immediately cohabitated, and it was, that's what we're looking at. That's the way that life can be. And when people say, oh, that's not realistic, I disagree. I think that's realistic. I think these limitations that we've placed and these labels that we use, that's what's not realistic. That's not reality. We just think so small if we keep ourselves safe.
So good. This conversation is so lovely, and everything she said. So, just take it in and take her medicine, which is what she's learned, which is listening. And that's what you're doing. You're listening to us share these stories. And it's truly abundance on tap, because every part of her story from beginning that she shared to now is just this evolution, and it's continuous, and it's going to continue to get more and more. I mean, 17 of us are about to converge together for the first time ever, because not all 17 of us have ever been together. And probably even more, like 20 some, because we have partners coming. I mean, I already feel the ripples happening, but the fact that, like you said, we can articulate it, like really truly feel, because I think that's my most valuable thing that I get from this water every single day, is that it allows me to feel and be human. Because for so long I've just, almost half my life I was on antidepressants and didn't feel anything. I was just numb. And so the ability to feel is such a vital aspect of our health, of our wealth, of our community, of our tribe. And so if you are looking for any of the gems that she has shared, reach out to us, ask us questions, get uncomfortable learning about something that you probably haven't even dove into yet, because society has programmed you to believe that everything, tap water, bottled water, all these other options, are safe and effective or whatever. So, we want you listening to just ask questions, because that's where you're going to expand as well. And dip your toes in, like Susan said. So is there anything else that you want to share with the world here today?
And where can people find you, Susan?
Oh, thank you, Alex. They can find me on Instagram at _body_electric_projects. My website is thebodyelectricproject.com. And at Evolution Era, right? Right here. So I appreciate that. I just want to say too, we're going like, yes, 17 of us plus, partners are going to Las Vegas in July.
Portland, yeah.
Okay. So I just think it's really important. It's not like we're heading off, like to the Berkshires or something, or to Banff. We're going to Vegas in July. And again, for this group, that is not, nothing about that.
None of us gamble. None of us
nothing. We're in bed. I mean, I think right there, maybe that's what I would say is, you don't have to come to Vegas in July, right? But, you will. And Alex, I'm so happy what you said about somebody has to stay back and hold down the homestead,
Yeah.
but you're there. I mean, you're there. So we feel you there. We will.
I will be there in spirit. Don't worry. I'll be cackling at everyone, just pounding water all day, and I'll be well hydrated over here.
We'll be FaceTiming, right? We'll be together. So anyway, thank you so much. I'm sorry that was like.
Don't apologize.
That was perfect, Susan.
Yeah. Thank you.
We just, again, you want everyone else to be okay being seen how they are. You have to be okay being seen how you are. So this is a perfect representation of like your energy and your spirit and the way that you guide people. And that's okay. It's different than you think other people are, but it's perfect because it's you.
Yeah. I was thinking earlier, like, I wonder if there are any questions. I wonder if, and that's not how I roll. That's not how you guys roll. And I knew, that's what I was going to say. Actually, if you're here, you're supposed to be here. If you're here listening, there's a reason. So reach out.
Yes. Come as you are.
Come as you are. All right, guys.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a great day.